Good afternoon, everybody who has just joined our 10th annual Climate Core Symposium. We are going to just take a moment as you all start to enter, and we will get started. As we wait, I'll just mention a few reminders about Zoom and just some things to know for today. So we are on a webinar today rather than a traditional Zoom call. So that means that you will be able to see the panelists, but we cannot see you. Also, while slides are being presented, such as now, which you should see, beautiful Golden Gate Bridge, you should also be able to see the person talking, and that's active speaker mode. So as we switch between our panelists and different presenters throughout the day, that person should pop up on your screen. You should be able to see them, and that should be hopefully very engaging. Lastly, just a couple of Zoom features. If you have direct questions for the presenters in our team, be sure to use the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to get to them throughout the day, either responding to them over text or live. And then the chat box will also be open for you to use. In addition, today's webinar will be recorded, and it'll be shared following the event. So with that, cover the Zoom housekeeping. So I will pass it over to Steve Miller from SEI.
Hello, thanks, Jake. And welcome to our signature celebration event. This is the 10th year of Climate Core. Oh my gosh. I'm Steve Miller, Deputy Director for SEI. It's a nonprofit with a mission to build leaders to drive sustainability solutions. SEI is the organization that offers Climate Core, the award-winning workforce model and program. We are all witness to a milestone today. This is our first virtual symposium event in our 10-year history. We're virtual on account of the COVID pandemic. I was joking with Cyan Dandridge, our executive director, earlier today. She said that the virus is the elephant in the room these days. Well, yes, it is, but hopefully the virus isn't in any of our rooms today. Thank you, Cyan, for that little bit of humor. On behalf of the full Climate Core team at SEI, I welcome you and I thank you for being a part of this event. Marks the 10th program cycle, 10 years. The symposium is a celebration of the dedication and important work of you, our fellows, also of our partners across the state and beyond, who hosted Climate Core Fellows over past months. Our agenda, which you should see here, it's pretty straightforward, short, but hopefully compelling. We have a series of introductory and closing comments from the organizations that make Climate Core possible. We've teed up a panel that Jake will lead, a discussion of fellows and partners designed to offer us greater insight into the Climate Core experience. We have an amazing keynote address speaker, Lauren Sanchez, Deputy Secretary for Climate Policy and Intergovernmental Relations at the California EPA. We expect these 90 minutes are going to pass by pretty quickly. 10th cycle of Climate Core, it was made up of 108 fellows in California and Oregon. Let me repeat that, 108. This time last year, we thought 80 was a significant growth curve in the program. Back in 2010, SEI and BACR first partnered to design and launch Climate Core as an innovative AmeriCorps program. At that time, it was meant to respond to a real need during the Great Recession. Namely, match talented emerging professionals seeking to establish themselves in their careers in sustainability with partners who had greater goals and capacity to address with their environmental commitments. During this 10 years of the program, Climate Core surpassed the milestone this year of having 500 fellows since it was first created. We continue to hold dear our core program outcome each year of having 80% of fellows placed in the sustainability role shortly after program completion. Our fellows go on to work for amazing organizations and some of California's leading climate and energy practitioners, such as the UC Office of the President, SunPower, Pacific Gas and Electric, San Francisco Department of the Environment, Marin Clean Energy, SFO, and many more. Now I'd like to transition to SEI's Executive Director, Cyan Dandridge, to offer her thoughts on how Climate Core has evolved and to share some insights on our partners and fellows. Cyan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, very exciting year. And wow, thank you so much for all of you for being 126 participants. That's so exciting. Thank you all for taking the time to hear more about all of the amazing things that our fellows have been able to accomplish and the partners that have made it possible. So as Steve mentioned, this has been super exciting year for Climate Corps and also challenging. For some obvious reasons, obviously that elephant that's in the room of COVID, but also we made a lot of changes to our Climate Corps program this year that I'm super happy about, and I think we saw some really great success. So we saw some significant growth to our program. Last fall, we successfully launched a new track of fellowships in the Bay Area. So we have been training the next generation of environmental educators that's been focused on urban outdoor garden education for younger students through our Climate Corps Education Outside program. Very exciting. And also, along with our partner team at BACR, we increased the Climate Corps AmeriCorps Fellowship by 50%. So a big increase, and boy, Jake and Adolfo and Zoe really slammed it out of the park, along with my team, who just, we increased the accessibility of our Climate Corps fellow support to public agencies and nonprofits across the state, and added climate resiliency as a new area of focus for those AmeriCorps positions. So really excited about that. It was an amazing addition to the program. And Climate Corps fellows have been working across key sectors of our economy and our climate protection landscape. So they're working in education, in energy efficiency, sustainable energy, environmental justice, resiliency, I talked about that, and adaptation, both in planning and implementation strategies. They've been working in transportation, in zero waste, and some of our big shining moments, we've been working across multiple different partners, so schools, school districts, higher education, government agencies, private sector, including both nonprofit and corporate partners, and working in all kinds of different areas. So they've been really successful in helping to reduce climate impacts for all of these different partners. I really want to call out the partners that we've been working with for a really long time. So we have been working with Alameda County has been a partner of ours, I think, since the beginning of the program. So go Alameda County, you guys are amazing. You have hosted 48 fellows since 2010. SunPower has hosted 20 fellows. San Mateo County Community College District has hosted 10 fellows. Energy Coalition. I mean, there's a lot of really amazing partners that we've had some fantastic long-term partnerships with. The one that I want to really call out the most is Skyline College, who not only has been a really strong partner in hosting fellows for a long time, they're also a key partner for a lot of different elements in our program, including our sustainability blitz, the certificates that our fellows get, just all kinds of different programs. We have been working exclusively with our Skyline faculty, and also they're a partner in our Energized Colleges program, which is also a really significant program for SEI. And during this program, obviously, we have navigated uncharted waters that have been uncharted for everybody with the unprecedented COVID outbreak and the pandemic. And our team, we worked really hard with our Climate Corps fellows and the partners to help them to pivot to a remote work structure, but then also to make sure that they were still providing significant outcomes and outputs for our partners. And I'm happy to say that that has been really successful as well. I want to just spotlight one fellow in particular that I thought really kind of stood out for us. Kira Barsten, who was at the City of Mountain View. Kira focused on a community engagement at the city and reached an impressive amount of residents within her 10 months. She launched a community engagement program called Cool Block, so neighbors could be better prepared for disasters and reduce their carbon footprints and to build community. She also helped all residents to stay informed on the city's exciting programs and sustainability projects. Kira supported the launch of the online community engagement platform, which was Collaborate Mountain View. And in addition, like many of our fellows, Kira was instrumental in planning for an in-person event Earth Day, which was supposed to happen this spring, but obviously because of COVID and the pandemic and shelter in place, she wasn't able to offer it. So she prepped for this for months and had all kinds of great speakers and all kinds of different celebratory events lined up. But Kira was really able to swiftly adapt by developing an instrumental resource guide instead of that big event. And so the guide compiled information from 25 different Bay Area organizations into one sleek, beautiful PDF for Mountain View for the city, and for residents, how they could get involved with different sustainability initiatives throughout the city. And that really galvanized community engagement, which is no easy feat, especially amidst a pandemic. So I really want to just applaud Kira for her adaptability in these challenging times and celebrate her vast accomplishments. SEI and Climate Corps have a strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are working internally to center racial equity in our work and in Climate Corps as a program. And we strive to reflect the diverse communities we serve, especially those most impacted by climate change and other kinds of environmental, social, and economic injustices. And we are in the process of making adjustments to make this possible. So now I'd like to introduce Adolfo Rivera, who is just a fantastic individual and one of our key partners. Adolfo and his organization, BACR, are a key piece of the Climate Corps puzzle and really is a valued partner in this program since 2010. Through BACR, we have extended the number of our sites that aim to specifically support disadvantaged communities, and we're thrilled to continue to collaborate with BACR through the Climate Corps AmeriCorps program. Adolfo, take it away.
Thank you, Cyan. How is everyone? Glad to see some familiar faces. Hope everyone's doing well. So first of all, yeah, I'm very, very thankful to our partnership with SEI. Amazingly enough, it goes back to 2010 when we concocted this scenario we're all in. And I know we're all very proud of the accomplishment, our own accomplishments, but I think more proud of the accomplishments of the fellows who have gone on to do amazing things in their own careers. And we hope that this current group of fellows will do the same thing. So I want to thank Cyan and the SEI staff for partnering with us and putting up with us for 10 years. So just to start off, I want to just talk a little bit about everyone, the core members or the fellows transitioned during the COVID-19 scenario that we all found ourselves in. How, you know, we're amazingly impressed with how everyone transitioned into working from home at the drop of a dime, which I have to say was very impressive, and everyone's flexibility and patience as we all, as a community, transitioned to work from home. And like my Cyan mentioned, at the same time, getting things done and getting things accomplished in a very stressful environment, in a transitional environment where not everyone knew what was going on or what to do or how to manage it. But our fellows really did a great job of adjusting and continue to do the work. And so for that, we want to appreciate and thank all of you, the staff included, because we all had to do this kind of on the drop of a dime to adjust. And so just to our fellows, we want to thank you guys for being flexible, adjusting, and at the same time, reaching all the goals that you were intended to reach from the get-go. Also, the other thing I want to just say is that, you know, we at Bay Area Community Resources recognize that the environmental justice, we recognize that environmental justice is and must be a central component of our environmental work. And we recognize our Climate Corps AmeriCorps role and responsibility to build a representative and equity-driven new generation of environmental professionals. We are in solidarity with the Black Lives Movement. And we are in process of a structural analysis of our programs and training to ensure that we continue to be allies and do the best we can to help move the Black Lives Movement forward. One thing I will say that we're proud of at our AmeriCorps program is Alicia Garza, who is actually one of the Black Lives Matter founders, is a former AmeriCorps member back in 2002. Not very well known. We don't publicize it a lot because we don't want to cause any problems for her. But we're very proud of that she came to our program and actually coined the term Black Lives Matter as an AmeriCorps member. So as you can see, as through AmeriCorps, you can really create change and positive change in your communities. So we're very proud of that. Some of the things that we have done and we will do going forward to continue to move the effort forward is that, this year we actually established the Environmental Justice Working Group. We collaborated with fellows to host the Building Equity-Minded Practices in Climate Work workshop. We updated the fellowship transition document to include equity-minded questions that will help continue these initiatives across program years, but still not enough. And so we are committed to continuing to do the work in solidarity with the Black Lives Matters movement and the community, right? We want to stop, we want to listen, we want to learn, we want to grow. We've done some great work, but we're never done. And we hope to continue our efforts in partnership with SEI to continue to move the movement forward. As we all know, this industry needs more representation throughout our entire communities, right? And I think it's something that we're all aware of, and that we can continue to work towards that, to make it a more inclusive environment and a working group, because it's important to include everyone. And I know that we're committed to it, and we're going to be working with SEI to ensure that we're doing everything we can to make it an inclusive working environment. And what I always find amazing about the group of people who are doing Climate Corps is that everyone is very passionate about what they're doing. And we want to bring as many people from as many different backgrounds into doing the work and making it available to everyone. So I know our organization is committed to that. I know SEI is going to be committed to that. And hopefully together we can kind of keep it moving forward. Let's see. So now I want to spend a little bit of time doing a kind of like Cyan did, having a spotlight fellow. Her name is Grace Greenfield, and I'm just going to read a little bit about what Grace did in her term of service. Grace is a garden educator at Life Lab, working with young students in the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. If you don't know where Pajaro Valley is, I think that's out Monterey, correct? Out that way? Is that where Pajaro Valley is?
Watsonville, Santa Cruz.
Yeah, Monterey, Watsonville, out that way, yeah. Her projects were Grace started the Life Lab Garden Education Program at a new school this year and really thrived in the Kids Cook program. She also built one of her garden spaces from the ground up in her first year teaching. When COVID forced us to work remotely, Grace was instrumental in pivoting Life Lab's garden and nutrition curriculum to online instruction. She supported her classrooms with videos and seed packets, supported Climate Corps education outside curriculum development, and contributed to improving existing resources and curriculum at Life Lab. I'd like to share a quote from Grace on her experience. During these times, I saw what a great challenge it has been, not only for students, but the immense amount of work, love, and support teachers have poured into their work. COVID has brought forth a lot of challenges, but teachers and educators have shown up in a huge way. It has been an honor to work alongside this powerhouse of a community. Here with gardens of gratitude, I say, thank you, teachers. A couple of other things that Grace did is, on top of all that, she volunteered her time to sew 74 masks in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. She donated them to the Pajaro Valley School District employees, partners, and immunocompromised community members. Thank you so much, Grace, for doing all your work and going above and beyond your call of duty. Very proud of you, and we wish you the best. And just a couple of last, parting words for all the fellows. Good luck. You guys are at a huge advantage. You got your foot in the door. If there's anything we can do to help and support your future endeavors with recommendations, letters of support, please let us know. We're more than happy to do that for you. Sorry. We're always here. We're always a community. We're always a family. So don't go off. Let us know what you're doing. We want to keep track of you so we know what great things you're doing. And again, whatever we can help you with going forward, please let us know. Good luck. Thanks. I think I turn it over to Jake now.
Yes, thank you so much, Adolfo, for those words. And yes, so we are going to now transition into a short panel that we have today. And I would love to introduce our panelists now. And so today we are going to be joined for a little discussion just about Climate Corps and the year so far. And we'll be joined today by a group of fellows and supervisors as well. So today we'll have Isabel Perez Ramos, who's a Climate Corps fellow at San Mateo Community College District, Joel Alley, a Climate Corps alumni and a supervisor from Earth Team, Lauren Goldfarb, a Climate Corps fellow at Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We'll also be joined by Phoebe Schenker, a Climate Corps supervisor at the Eames Institute, and Vanita Niem, who is a Climate Corps supervisor at the Energy Coalition and alumni as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. And I will jump right into it in the essence of time. And so we'll start in order with Isabel from going left to right. And Isabel, we'd love if you would unmute yourself and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you can also answer this question, telling us a little bit about your experience as a fellow and how Climate Corps has made a difference in your career path as an emerging professional.
Happy. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Isabel Perez. I'm the Zero Waste Fellow at the San Mateo County Community College District, at least until next week. And I'm actually very sad to leave this fantastic organization and a great team. And I'm really excited that Climate Corps gave me the opportunity to land at a higher education institution, even if it was a career path that I had not envisioned when I applied for the fellowship. And my experience as a fellow might be a bit different because when I applied to the program, I was a mid-career environment professional. I had worked in academia and for the USDA for 5 years. So I was kind of hesitant to apply. I actually found about the program on LinkedIn. And I was not sure if that was a great move at that point in my career. But I was new to the Bay Area and I actually decided to apply because I know it was going to be a great way to build my network locally and to try to find a working opportunity in local government, which is actually what I wanted to do next. And I actually applied for the fellow positions working in cities with climate action planning and with policymaking. But then I got a call from Jake telling me about this opportunity with the San Mateo County Community College District doing zero waste work. And I was a bit confused. And honestly, I didn't know what a college district was, or I had no experience in waste management. But I decided to go for it. And I remember during my interview process, something that my current team said really opened my vision to the sustainability industry. And it was like a college district is like a city. We have over 100 different buildings and 3 campuses, right? We have College of San Mateo, Skyline, and Cañada College. We serve a diverse population of people, more than 40,000 people, including staff, students, and our surrounding communities. We get to do renewable energy projects. We get to do water conservation. We get to do outreach about recycling and composting. So it was super excited to hear that. So I said yes. And then 10 months later, I had great learning experience. I had the chance to work on all these different things and also to develop a sustainable procurement policy for the district. So I actually got to work on policy making. And I'm pretty sure all of these experiences with the fellowship really helped me to get my next opportunity. I'm actually starting a job at the County of San Mateo Office of Sustainability next month. And I'm pretty sure that the fellowship really helped me get that position. So I'm really grateful for my team and for the supervisors and all the great training that we received. And I really just want to mention that Climate Corps is not only for emerging professionals. I think it's a great opportunity for mid-career professionals like myself looking to pivot into a new career in sustainability.
Yeah, thank you so much, Isabel, and couldn't agree more. We do hope this is an opportunity for everybody who can really make a difference. And this is a program where we hope to be inclusive of that. So, and I think it's a perfect transition as well to our next speaker, Joelle from Earth Team, and also an alumni of the program, to speak to your experience with Climate Corps, especially as a supervisor, supervising emerging professionals or mid-career professionals at your time at Earth Team so far. Joelle.
Great, thanks, Jake. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, first I wanted to say congratulations to everybody who's listening into this webinar for completing your fellowship or approaching the end of your fellowship. It's definitely a kind of stressful time, especially given everything that's going on. It's already a transitional time, but I just wanted to congratulate all of you and tell you how excited I am for what the future holds for each and every one of you. I had a fantastic experience with Climate Corps, AmeriCorps in 2017, 2018. I was one of a small cohort of AmeriCorps fellows that year that has grown so large now, which is really exciting. And I started my time with Earth Team. We are a small nonprofit located in Richmond, California. We work with high school students across the East Bay area, doing after-school internship programs focused on STEM and environmental education. In my first year, I was working directly with students straight out of college, and it was just a really, it was a really important time for me to kind of learn the network of organizations working in the Bay Area and kind of figure out what I wanted to do in my future. I think moving back to the Bay Area, I grew up here and then I went to Santa Barbara for college, and moving back here, there was definitely a period where I had to kind of relearn the ecosystem of environmental organizations in the Bay Area. And so having the support of the Climate Corps AmeriCorps program was really helpful for me. And I got really lucky because I landed as a fellow at Earth Team, which is an organization that now I've been with for 3 years. It's an organization that I love with my whole heart, and I've had a fantastic time working there. And I've also had a really fantastic time working with fellows over the last couple of years too. So last year was my first year as a full-time employee at Earth Team, and I had the chance to supervise 2 fellows, and that was a fantastic experience. And then this year we had 2 more fellows. So shout out to Charlie and Jessica, who are our 2 Climate Corps AmeriCorps fellows this year. And I don't want to play favorites, but this was definitely my favorite year supervising fellows. I just had a fantastic time with Charlie and Jessica, and my experience with hosting fellows has always been that I learned so much from them. And I think that that's a really powerful part of having fellows, is that it gives you the opportunity to invite new people into your organization outside of your network, and both give fellows the chance to develop professionally, but also kind of bring new life into organizations. And so I've been really grateful to work with Charlie and Jessica, who are both really inspiring. Jessica also works with an organization that she founded called the Museum of Tomorrow, and Charlie next year is headed off to start a PhD program at UC Santa Cruz. And Earth Team has just been so enriched by their presence, and I hope that the experience through Climate Corps, AmeriCorps, and with Earth Team has given them additional inspiration to carry forward in their coming careers. So I'll wrap up there. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joelle, and you've really been a great example of this program full circle. And so I'll pass it over to Lauren Goldfarb, our Climate Corps fellow at Silicon Valley Clean Energy, to introduce herself and talk a little bit about your experience in Climate Corps and how it's made a difference for you.
Hi, yes, my name is Lauren Goldfarb, and I actually just finished my time as the Community Outreach Fellow at Silicon Valley Clean Energy last week, which was just such a phenomenal experience. And I'm at the very start of my career. So when I found the Climate Corps program almost a year ago, I had just been working as an environmental educator, which was really fun. But I realized that, it wasn't exactly my calling, and I wanted to find something that just helped me decide better where I'm meant to be. And I saw this program, and it wasn't just work experience, it was professional development. And so when I applied, I remember looking at all the opportunities, and I wasn't sure, and I was recommended to do clean energy, and I'd had no experience in clean energy professionally beforehand. And I was a little bit hesitant, but when I met the team and once I started working, all the pieces just really came together. And I've learned so much about myself as an individual and a professional in this program and with the team. And I'm so sad that my time with Silicon Valley Clean Energy is over, but I'm happy to say that communications and clean energy really stuck with me, and I just accepted a position in a clean energy firm in Denver doing marketing. So I'm really, really excited, and I couldn't have known this without the Climate Corps program and SVCE, so thank you.
Wow, congratulations, Lauren. That's outstanding. And that must be some really fresh news because we just spoke a couple of days ago. And so that's wonderful and congratulations. And I think you're definitely right too, just about how important this experience is for your personal development and your professional development. You know, like you, I just came out of college and I'm an alumni of the program too, and it really set me on my career path, and very grateful for that. So I'll pass it over next to Phoebe Shanker, and for you to share your experience on Climate Corps and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about supervision this year.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Phoebe. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here. My background is actually as an architect. I spent about 15 years practicing designing sustainable buildings on the architecture side for a firm called EHCD for the last 10 for EHCD. And just recently, mid-career change is that's like a theme. I just recently changed to become part of a brand new nonprofit that is working to advance design as a tool for solving problems at all scales. And I think this recent time has revealed a lot of problems in a kind of new and really immediate ways. And probably the biggest scale problem that we all face is climate change. And so that is one of the big things that we're tackling on, as an organization and and on our property and with our facilities as well. So as soon as I heard about the Climate Corps Fellow program, I wanted to get somebody signed up. And so actually one of the first things we did as a nonprofit was to get somebody on board. So we were off cycle. So our fellow only started in January, which means that we had very few months together in person before the whole everything changed and things basically shut down, and went online. And I think it's been really interesting to work with the Climate Corps Fellow remotely. It's been great, like everybody transitioning to working online has been, ups and downs, right? And figuring it out. But I think it's sort of highlighted, for me, there's a lot of parallels with climate change and sustainability, which is that it's really all about communication and figuring out how we as humans communicate and empathize, and figuring out how to do that online has been, I think, great for us and for our Climate Corps Fellows. So we are just starting to sort of emerge from this and figure out how to set the baselines and things, but it's been a great experience, and we're new, but we're happy, and we hope to keep going with the program. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, and thanks so much, Phoebe, for joining our panel today. And I think you're right, the theme is mid-career shift, or really expanding our own capacity, our own involvement with this issue and this movement in many ways. Okay, and last but not least, I'll pass it over to Vinita to introduce herself and talk a little bit about her experience in Climate Corps.
Hi everyone, my name is Vinita Niam. I am a project manager for communications, education, and training at the Energy Coalition. I started at the Energy Coalition as a Climate Corps Fellow in 2017. I was actually in the same cohort as Joelle, although I started a little later than everyone else. And after that, I was lucky enough to be hired on as a permanent full-time staff member. And a little bit about what we do at the Energy Coalition. We provide environmental STEM curriculum for schools, and we help public agencies identify energy efficiency projects. And we've had a really long partnership with Climate Corps, so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be on this panel today. So thank you for inviting me. And to answer your question, what really stood out to me as a Climate Corps supervisor, my first time supervising a Climate Corps this year, was seeing how much my fellow has grown in such a short amount of time. We're only with them for less than a year, and yet they're able to make these great strides in just such a short amount of time. So shout out to my fellow, Christina Yee. You know, when you start working with your fellow, you start training them and walking them through all of the protocols and procedures, and then all of a sudden, fast forward to a few months, they're the ones moving your team's goals forward, and they are an independent working professional. I recall a time when I was too busy to check my fellow's work. And so my fellow had to send out communication to clients without me checking it. And this may not seem like a big deal to the rest of you, but when I read the email, I just stared at my laptop and I was like, okay, this is a great email. I said that out loud, and I immediately called my boyfriend over to say, look at this email she wrote. And I was just so excited. And there's so many moments like that she was able to reward me with. And it's just so rewarding because you're with them at the start of their career and they progress little by little. And then you're really sad that they have to go and leave your team off into a new venture. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the hard work of our entire team of fellows. When the schools closed due to the pandemic, all of our in-person events had to be canceled. And so they all really worked together to provide resources for our educators remotely. So to our seven fellows, Adriana, Jack, Jasmine, Megan, Lincoln, Patricia, and Christy, thank you so much for all the work you've done for our educators. I hope you all realize how much our team appreciates you, and just congratulations to a great fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanita, for calling them out specifically. And, you know, really just we're so proud of everybody for an amazing year, especially through some of the challenges that we faced. Okay, so as we keep going through our panel, we're going to have one more round of questions and answers, and we'll follow the same order. And so, Isabel, this question is for you. In a year filled with ups and downs, as we've been saying, what lessons and skills are you going to take with you beyond the end of the program year? And how will that help you continue to pursue your goals?
Sure, it's a tough question, but definitely I think for me, the main lesson here is that it's never too early to start building resilience, because crises are inevitable. They're a part of life, and they will come in many different forms: pandemic, a natural disaster, financial recession, or even a social revolution, right? So you can actually really connect all these crises with unsustainable systems. So I see these disturbances as like a window of opportunity to change the status quo faster and to try to make things better. And maybe this is just me trying to stay positive, but also as a professional, these challenging times are actually giving us an opportunity to embrace new thinking and to push sustainable alternatives as part of the crisis response and recovery. I think it's the perfect time to start advocating for a Green New Deal and to push for a green stimulus recovery plan as a way not only to fix the economy, but to advance social equity and to maybe try to heal the planet in the long term, right? So I also saw this like happening at my organization. For example, teleworking was not a common practice before the pandemic. And we had to change operations move operations online overnight. And now everybody is understanding, right, the benefits and embracing it. And we were trying to push the idea of teleworking as a way to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from commuting. It's actually one of the biggest sources, and we have no luck. But then we had this disturbance, and overnight we were able to institute that sustainable practice. And the district is going to stay online for the rest of the year. So this was an opportunity for us to see that we have the capacities and resources to change, to do things differently. And for me, if anything, this crisis has really reinforced my commitment to advocate for systemic, sustainable change. And now I'm really trying to become a leader. And I'm trying to just bring a positive perspective to my work on climate adaptation and climate mitigation, to really try to highlight all the benefits, all the positive things that building resilience can bring. Thank you.
Well said, Isabel. Thank you so much for that. And I love just your enthusiasm, and I'm surely inspired, and I'm sure everyone else is, to really meet the moment in this crisis. It's never too soon to be prepared, to be resilient. So I'll pass it on next to Joelle to answer a slightly different question, but still with this theme in mind of the challenge ahead that we're facing, and especially about how difficult these challenges might be to overcome alone. So Joelle, I'll ask you this: as our fellows are about to, or they might already be championing some sustainability initiatives, what advice do you have for them to meet these broader challenges, while maintaining perspective just on what our own limits are in this broader global challenge? So tougher question, I know. I'll turn to you, Joelle.
Perfect, thank you. So I've been thinking about this question for a while, and I think that I might be going too specific with it, but that's where I'm going to go with it. So one piece of advice that I kind of have that I think my team has learned in recent months as a result of COVID is the kind of power of virtual organizing. I think that this is a silver lining and something kind of unexpected that came from transitioning a lot of our communications to virtual platforms. Our team in spring tends to hold community events, and we have decent turnout, but hosting these events online has really allowed us to bring more voices, center more more diverse voices, and bring additional community members in. And I think that that's one thing that can really be kind of taken forward regardless of the resolution of the COVID pandemic, is taking advantage of the ways that we can use virtual platforms to organize. I've also seen it in recent weeks in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. I've just seen this kind of ability for organizers to get groups of people together in ways that weren't necessarily accessible in the past using Zoom and other virtual platforms. So that's one thing that I think is a really powerful tool. Another thing that I would say is take advantage of the network you have through Climate Corps, as well as your supervisors. I think that this fellowship kind of gives you a built-in network of support and experts in many different areas all over the Bay Area. I think that's the beauty of having Climate Corps and AmeriCorps, and people that are working focused on environmental justice, and people that are working on education, and people that are working on technology. So take advantage of that network. Don't try and do everything by yourself. Use these relationships that you had built in for you. And yeah, just kind of take advantage of all of the work that you were able to put in the last 10 months as you move forward in your careers.
I'm muted, classic Zoom mistake. Thank you so much, Joelle. We really appreciate your wisdom and guidance here. Okay, so I'll pass it back to Lauren with for the chance to answer this question again. The same one Isabel answered about how this experience will help you continue your goals and what lessons and skills you'll take with you. And I'd also just like to do a quick time check that we have so much great information today that we're already running out of time, but the floor is yours, and we'll wrap up after we each answer the next question. Thanks.
Sounds good. I'll try to be brief. I just want to say that, so much happened this past year. And, specifically for my fellowship, a lot of the projects that I started with were canceled or postponed just due to COVID. But the beauty of this program is empowering each of the fellows to kind of take ownership of the impact that they want to have at their organization. And I really took that to heart. And my passion project was making a podcast. And I had so much fun working on it, and it was just so rewarding to have a team that believed in me and invested in my ideas. And I learned so much about myself, and I'm definitely going to take that courage in myself, understanding my capacity as a professional and an individual, and I want to channel that for the rest of my career. So thank you, Climate Corps and SVCE.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. And I hope I hope everybody can follow in your footsteps in that sense. Okay, so shift back over to Phoebe. If you have any thoughts again on the question of as our fellows are entering this the job market and in these challenging times, what advice do you have for them as they go out into the world?
Sure. I think I could probably spend all afternoon talking about this. So it's hard to sum it up in one, short answer. But I think, one of the things about climate change is that, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So I think, and one of the things that's been great about working with Ryan, my fellow, is, kind of picking each other up when we're, when you're getting down. I think keeping your, taking care of the long view and keeping yourself motivated and hopeful about change is really important. And I think this, coronavirus has really illustrated that for us in a, stark way, that I think you can either, choose to see this as it is a terrible thing that's happening, right? But it's also a real opportunity to change and to fix some of the things that have been broken. And I think, everything we experience is like that, right? Both an opportunity and a challenge. And I think, at the beginning, sort of everybody was saying, it's like we've all been sent to our rooms to think about what we've done. And I think we're starting to see that space to think about things differently is really opening things up. So we're living at an amazing time in history for, really seeing things shift. And I hope that I'm very hopeful, based on all of you and all of the work, tons of people that I meet, that, we really can have a positive impact and start to pivot things in the direction that they need to go as we come out of this. So I remain hopeful, and I think that's the key. And I would just also echo what Joelle said, that finding your people that keep you going, your community, and getting resilience from that community is really important in staying motivated and inspired to keep going.
It sure is necessary to have that team, that group of people that can build each other up and move together towards these goals. And last but not least, I'll turn to Vinita to share any advice that you might have on this same question.
Thank you, Jake. I'd like to echo that very difficult. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, it's the screen said I was muted, so I wasn't sure if you could hear me. Am I good now? Okay,
thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, this is a difficult question. I did spend some time thinking about how I would answer it, and it really just boils down to what I wish someone told me when I was a fellow, or someone just graduating college. I'm still trying to figure out the answer for myself as well, because I am also very early in my career. But with that said, I strongly believe in exploring skills that you're interested in or excel at. There are so many different roles that you can play towards this cause for global sustainability. You are not limited to the one that you started at. I studied outreach and education in college, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into schools and educate students directly, and that is what I did at the beginning of my fellowship. But then I did take some other opportunities to do marketing and graphic design, and that led me to a new position where I'm doing marketing and graphic design, and I'm not in the field at all. And that ended up being a really valuable role because everything turned virtual and we weren't even able to go in the field. So just be flexible. You never know where you're going to end up, and it's okay if you don't know that path. I still don't know the path, but I'm grateful that I did start working on skills that I was interested in, such as graphic design and communications. And yeah, I hope that helps all of you who are navigating your post fellowship. That's just something that helps me as I'm currently still trying to figure out the answer to that question. Thank you.
Couldn't be more truthful, Benita. I think all of us are always figuring out what the next step is, what we can each be doing to do better. And as you've seen from some mid-career shifts as well, it's never too late to get yourself to that place where you want to be and contributing to this global fight, this marathon, as Phoebe said. So thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining this really impactful, inspirational, and unfortunately very quick panel today. Thank you again, and we really appreciate all that you've done. And from here, I will encourage you all to contact our amazing panelists. Their contact information is here, and these slides will be shared after the event as well for you to access. And on that note, I will pass it over to Steve Miller again to introduce our keynote speaker.
Hello again. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote for this year's symposium event, Lauren Sanchez. Lauren asked us to keep her introduction short, so Lauren, I will, but I do want to just mention a few things. Last fall, Lauren was appointed by Governor Newsom as Deputy Secretary for Climate Policy and Intergovernmental Relations at Cal EPA. She's held so many roles prior to that at the California Air Resources Board as International Policy Director, the US Department of State, where she served as a climate negotiator on the Paris Agreement under President Obama. She was an advisor for the UN, a research project leader at Yale, a Moran Fellow at the National Resource Defense Council. Wow. I mean, Lauren, you have such a pedigree, you have such a wealth of experience, but most important, you have a lot of insight to share with us. So Lauren currently resides in Oakland with her husband, spends most of her weekends exploring the wilderness of California. But Lauren, we are so honored to have you with us today. When you're ready, please begin sharing your video and audio, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being with us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. How's the audio and video? Good. Sweet. Well, first off, thanks so much to Steve and SCI for the invitation. I'm honored to be here today. I have to say, this is probably the thing I was most looking forward to joining in recent weeks. You know, just catching the end of the panel, what I felt from the amazing panelists were notions of hope and of growth and of motivation. And I have to say, working at the state government in a time like this moment in time we find ourselves in is, you know, lacking in those areas. So thank you so much for having me, and congratulations. I mean, what an accomplishment to everyone on the line, to the Climate Corps, a decade of really, really important work. So really thrilled to be here. I wanted to kind of anchor my remarks in this moment in time. You know, one of the things I had talked about with Steve and preparing to join you all today was, you know, the tone of a keynote, I think, could change based on the headlines of any given day. And it's something I really want us all to reflect on. And then I'm happy to share a little bit about my path and experience to this overly fancy title, and then how we kind of move forward together. And definitely want to leave time for a couple questions at the end, because you all are the brains, and really, really excited to be here and hear from you as well. So I think I'd maybe start by a nod to, you know, the crisis that we're all facing, noting that this gathering virtual is an amazing adaptation. And I love that someone noted that it's kind of easier to virtually organize or rather there are kind of benefits. And, my niece is graduating from 8th grade today, and my baby sister graduated from college, and I have seen an amazing amount of resolve in our communities and our graduating classes and teachers in school rooms, and colleagues in government, but really want to acknowledge just how difficult these times are, for all of us. And in that same note, I think we are seeing the resilience of a lot of our communities in dealing with the health crisis and the pandemic, and more recently, an amazing uprising surrounded around the Black Lives Matter movement, and all of these questions of racial justice. And for me, having worked on climate for the past decade, there are so many intersections between the pandemic and the health crisis and the injustice that we are trying to confront every moment of every day, that I am so honored to be joined by all of you in this field, and really, really excited about, the opportunities that the next weeks and months and years and decades present to all of us to really re-envision what our society looks like. As we know, a lot of our communities right now are mobilized around protecting public health. My role at Cali, PA, as mentioned, is around protecting public health and the environment. We know that after this crisis, the next big one is climate. Given kind of projections of our snowpack over the winter, and for those of you that have resided in California over recent years know that wildfire season is right around the corner. So as I think about kind of building community resilience to the health crisis, I think there are a lot of lessons we can learn as we kind of try to tackle the climate crisis as well. But how did I get here? Thanks for the shortened bio, Steve. I like to kind of mention in talking about my path, I think one of the most important things you can bring to any career or position is passion and heart. I grew up in Seattle. The photo behind me is actually from the Sierra here in California, but I grew up in Seattle and spent a lot of time outside, and learned early on that you fight hardest to protect what you love. And I loved spending time outside. So by the time I got to college, we were just starting to kind of wrap our heads around what climate change might mean for Mount Rainier and the Cascades, and ecosystems like this. And I knew that I was motivated and passionate to do everything I could to stop it. So in undergrad, I studied environmental studies and biology, really with a science lens. Early on, as we now know from all of the kind of anti-science campaigning from our friends in the oil industry, there was a real question for me around how bad was climate change really going to get. And when I reflect back on 2007, which is when I graduated high school, I remember climate change feeling so existential and so long-term. A lot of our modeling was, in 2050, sea level rise will be X, Y, and Z. By 2100, 2 degrees warming. And I think the thing that I have watched over the past decade, and I hope all of you felt during your fellowships, is, the science has accelerated and the problem has accelerated. And in no point early on in my career did I think that we would be breathing hazardous levels of wildfire smoke across California for months of the year. And so really just kind of a feeling of urgency that I have felt over the past decade, but was really grounded in science early on. After leaving college, I went abroad. There's something about climate change that early on I felt was a global problem, and so we needed a global solution and a global lens. For those of you that are thinking about spending time abroad or have, huge period of growth for me in terms of exposure to other types of communities and cultures and ways of thinking. I specifically was in Morocco after feeling like, climate change was going to be kind of the defining issue of our generation, but also 9/11 had a huge impact on worldviews. And I was really determined to kind of counteract everything that any sort of injustice and learn more about the Muslim and Islamic world. then applied to grad school, which I'd love to talk to any of you individually about. While there, I was on my science track and realized that although climate science is incredibly important, I wanted to be fighting. I wanted to be in the game. I didn't want to be writing about the impacts. I wanted to be stopping them. And at the time for that meant for me policy making. And so, as Steve mentioned, I joined the UN really under the auspice of global problem, global solution. I happened to join at a time that was really exciting in the international community because everyone was gearing up to sign the world's first global agreement on climate change, the aforementioned Paris Agreement. While at the State Department representing the US government, honed a number of skills that I think I continue to use in my state government hat. I was overwhelmed by the global commitment to tackle this issue. Spent, nights in negotiating rooms until 3 a.m. with US officials and Indian officials and Angolan officials. And it really felt like the entire global community was mobilized around tackling climate change, noting that, there's this massive asymmetry between the actions we take today and the impacts that we are feeling now versus in 10 years. And as we know, the massive inequities that climate change exacerbates around the world. And that I'll mention a little bit later, we also see in California, of course. Signed a global agreement. I joke that it was my career peak. I think I was around 25 at the time. My kind of biggest note would be to you all to take advantage of any opportunity that is placed in front of you. In the case of the State Department, I worked alongside a number of really accomplished lawyers and climate negotiators, and I was new and scrappy and again, very passionate. And so to the extent to which, you are thinking about your next step being a little bit of a risk or a little bit outside of your comfort zone, absolutely do it. That's where you grow. That's where you can add value. That experience shaped the rest of my career. November 2016, when I was still working at the State Department, I think maybe we all remember where we were on the night of the US election. I promise not to make this overly political, but I will just say, the Trump administration coming in definitely sent a number of signals around the world related to all foreign policy issues, especially related to climate change. I spent 6 months working under the Trump administration, stayed at the State Department. We tried to convince the politicals basically to stay in the Paris Agreement. Ultimately, spoiler alert, we're unsuccessful. So I jumped ship and hiked. That's when I took this photo, and did a deep dive on, trying to leave behind a lot of the pessimism and frustration and, sense of doom that I had felt, noting the massive vacuum in kind of federal leadership on this issue. And that has, implications globally, but also a ton domestically across the US. And so at the time, I racked my brain for how to apply these skills. And again, this passion for tackling climate best in a next step. And while at this lake, decided to come work for California. And for those of you that had the opportunity to work for government agencies, you, I think, will appreciate that, leaving federal government, I was excited to stay in government. I think there's a really, really exciting pace to policy making, especially on this issue where urgency is so incredibly important. But I should also mention I had some experience at the nonprofit level, so really happy to help anyone who's kind of deciding across fields. Happy to connect further. In California, my dad grew up in Pasadena, where back in the 70s, where you couldn't see the mountains, and now I live in Oakland, which suffers from wildfire smoke and a variety of other environmental and climate exacerbated issues. I've spent 3 years loving the amount of political support and community support and engagement and thoughtful process that the state takes to a lot of our climate work. We have, the most ambitious climate targets of any major economy. We are the 5th largest economy in the world, but most importantly, I think a lot of our work is really focused on community engagement and public comment, and a lot of grassroots mobilizing, which I think I definitely was not a part of at the federal government. And I think because we're so much closer to communities, I find my work 10 times more rewarding. I think another thing I would like to leave you with today is just connecting to people. So I loved the panelist who spoke about her podcast. Ultimately, because climate is such a cross-cutting, amorphous, complicated issue that affects literally every part of society, it's about helping people connect to issues and helping the scientists communicate to people and the policymakers communicate in a way that makes people feel motivated and a part of this movement and mobilized for change. In terms of kind of moving forward, I am unbelievably honored to be in this fight alongside each of you. It's an all hands on deck exercise, I would say. If I were to have a slide deck, it probably unfortunately would have projections that I'm sure you're all acutely aware of, that don't let any of us sleep well at night. But I will say, again, because climate impacts every aspect of society, and in order to decarbonize our world, we need to be working across sector in an interdisciplinary manner. It's going to take all of us. And what I have enjoyed in California as compared to my former roles is the people of California understand climate change. They prioritize climate change. They vote on climate change. And I think, we get to be kind of the tip of the spear in terms of the national and global conversation. And I think it's an incredibly, incredibly important role to play. And each of the panelists who I saw at the various organizations had a really important role to play. Government can't do it alone. The private sector can't do it alone. Our nonprofits and grassroots organizations can't do it alone. We know that we need each and every one of us. And again, I would just kind of re-emphasize that we need to stay connected to people and communities in what is the fight for our generation. I think you are at this kind of career launching moment. What I was told when I was a little bit younger was, again, to see the beauty and opportunity in every open door. So I think while the massive unemployment numbers and economic devastation and political attention maybe away from green issues right now can feel like a setback, I would challenge each of you to see the opportunity and to see me as a resource as you navigate whatever steps come next. I loved the comment on kind of turning to your supervisors and your networks that you have built over the past year. I think it's incredibly important. I still talk to my first bosses that I had. I think you never really arrive or achieve enlightenment in this field because it's so nascent. There are a number of other professional fields that I think have decades, if not centuries, on us. And this one, is kind of in constant evolution. And I think now we are really in the driver's seats of where we want to take this movement. We've seen a lot of action from youth on kind of the global stage. I think in November, we will have really clear direction, at least in the national level. But here in California, we've always prioritized this issue. And I would ask each of you what role, if you want to stay in California, you want to play in driving this agenda forward. We know that we look at climate through an equity lens and through a health lens. We know that economic and fiscal situation is dire, but that is the time for us to be creative and collaborative and to come together. And I guess, again, I would just emphasize how honored I am to be here today with all of you and to be working alongside of you. Please, please, please reach out. There are a number of projects that we need great minds on at the state level, or else I'm happy to be a resource in any other aspect of your career. So thank you again, and happy to take questions.
Lauren, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. You delivered so much more than we could have hoped for. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We do have just a limited time for questions. A reminder, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen for posing questions. If we don't get to your question, we will be working with Lauren to get you responses after this event through email. Lauren,
I love the first question.
Yeah, so I mean, you were just talking about this, Lauren, about the opportunity in light of, a lot of challenges and a lot of downside with the pandemic and coming out of the current situation. So I think this question really is around how might the state, to the extent that you're able to share with us, how might the state take advantage of this moment in time, this opportunity to rethink what is, has been the status quo in terms of how do we reach the state's ambitious goals around carbon neutrality, decarbonization, zero net energy, and what are some of the levers and what are some of the potential ways that we could be looking at rebuilding the workforce, and we can be looking at ramping back up in terms of an economy, but the associated greenhouse gas emissions that go with it. Can you give us any thoughts there?
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Liz. What a really great question. It is what I'm spending 95% of my time on these days, and would really welcome a follow-up if the brief answer doesn't cover it. But I think I would think about this in kind of two ways. One is pretty high level and conceptual, and the other is really concrete. So as mentioned, if you saw the New York Times article today, the rebound that we're already seeing globally in terms of emissions and air pollutants is troubling. In California, we've seen a huge plummet, as you can imagine, in GHGs and air pollution, and frankly, demand for gas and diesel. We are right now kind of afforded the opportunity, at least from the state government perspective, to think about, as I mentioned earlier, the re-envisioning and the rebuilding and the refashioning. A big part of why our emissions are down, let me back up. If you look at California's greenhouse gas inventory, half of our greenhouse gas emissions are related to transportation when you include fuel production. And so as the Deputy Secretary on Climate, I spend the vast majority of my time thinking about transportation. And that is how to get people onto mass transit, how to get people to drive less, how to build our communities in a sustainable way that doesn't require cars, electric vehicles, a number of our transportation equity programs, et cetera. And so one of the reasons why our emissions are down, the main driver, right, is everyone's in their homes. How do you then move forward to capture teleworking and address the digital divide in California in a way that allows those individuals that are able to telework to continue teleworking? How do you incentivize government and the private sector to kind of build in a telecommuting lifestyle, which is something the state is definitely thinking about. And luckily we have some federal support in thinking about how the state might build out broadband in our rural communities and our urban communities that right now lack digital access. The other thing I would kind of point to would be a lot of questions around remote learning. There are a number of students who won't go back to school in the fall at the undergrad and graduate level for financial or remote reasons. And one of the questions we're asking ourselves at the state level is, what could those students be doing? What kind of workforce development? What kind of climate corps, for example, where we could offer school credit and training, and similar to FDR era, plant trees, help communities become more resilient, harden critical infrastructure for fire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I'll mention is, we have a $54 billion state deficit. We have a constitutional mandate to balance that. And so we are incredibly reliant right now on relief from our federal partners. But once that relief comes, our intention is to rebuild California in a sustainable, just, and equitable way that advances us towards our climate goals, specifically for my perspective around transportation. But there are a number of opportunities across all of our sectors. If you think about resilient infrastructure and what we need to do to the grid ahead of fire season, or natural infrastructure, wetland restoration, fuel and forest health management, healthy soils for our agricultural stakeholders and farm workers in the Central Valleys. So I think, we are looking across all of our sectors of greenhouse gas emissions and thinking about, with an influx of federal stimulus dollars, how would we put these to work in a way that creates high quality jobs for Californians and advances all of our climate and equity goals. The governor launched a task force specifically on this topic, and my boss co-chairs the climate subcommittee, which I'm happy to talk to any of you offline. Basically, we are now getting kind of hundreds of proposals, grassroots level, private sector, universities, on kind of bold ideas that are actionable for the governor to take right now, absent federal dollars, or in the case of getting federal dollars, that would really drive us towards a green recovery.
Lauren, thank you. And you anticipated the other two questions in your response, but I'll just call them out. If there's anything else around the collaboration between state government and higher education at this time and in this kind of moment regarding climate mitigation and adaptation. And then the second is just differences, challenges, or potential areas of leverage between federal and state approaches to tackling climate issues.
That second question is a whole dissertation, I have to say. Yeah, I'll try to tackle both of them. So on state and higher ed, to be frank, a lot of California's ambitious climate and clean energy goals are rooted in research from our higher ed that we do in collaboration with a lot of our higher ed institutions around the state. We rely really heavily on the powerhouses that we have and are really lucky to have here in state that help us shape a lot of our analytical and technical thinking around those goals and then how to implement those goals. I'm happy to send along, if anyone's interested, kind of the latest and greatest in terms of research collaboration that we have been doing. Right now we're leading a study on how California will achieve its carbon neutrality goal. So by 2045, the state has to be economy-wide carbon neutrality. And we have contracted with 2 different UC schools to look at, first, as I mentioned earlier, how we get transportation down to net zero emissions. And then secondly, along kind of that trajectory, how the state should manage the decline of oil and gas production in this state, noting that almost all of our oil produced in state is going into cars. And then the vast majority of oil that we're importing is also going into cars. So one kind of concrete example, but happy to follow up with anyone offline. And then biggest differences between federal and state, I would say, wow, I have loved working for both. It's apples and oranges. Working for a state government like California is almost at the scale of the federal government because we are the 5th largest economy in the world. And because of our kind of 50 years of history of working on tackling air pollution and then 20 years on climate, without leaving the technical and going to the political, I would say, here in California, we have more registered independents than Republicans. And the amount of climate forward legislation coming out of the legislature, the amount of political support from all of our voters, and the amount of, I would say, the priority put on environmental justice voices across the state is fundamentally different from the federal level. At the federal level, which is far more moderate, kind of reflecting the national demographics, we were always kind of negotiating against ourselves. And here in California, because we enjoy so much political support, I feel like we have a long runway and we're constantly being pushed, which I really, really appreciate and is such an important part of policymaking. In addition to kind of nationally, the EJ movement being quite a bit different from here in California, I would say if you look at the composition of Congress versus our state legislature, you will see quite a bit difference. I remember my first meeting in the Capitol, I went into a committee hearing and saw people that looked like me on the dais, and that was really the first time I had felt like I was represented in our state legislature, and was incredibly moved by that. And, you know, the power that the Hispanic caucus has in Sacramento, which reflects, you know, the demographics of California, means that there's a very different political dynamic and elevation for these issues, noting that the majority of those populations, you know, live in parts of the state that are really impacted by a lot of these issues. At the federal government, we have the unique kind of legal seat at the UN and a number of international processes. So if you are interested in pursuing and learning more about those, definitely the federal government. I will say here in California, as Steve mentioned, I was International Policy Director at CARB. We have a number of bilateral and multilateral agreements and collaboration with other states and other nations around the world, again, because of our size and our kind of technical expertise on a lot of these issues, but very different role on the global stage, at least legally.
Well, Lauren, thank you. We have some additional very erudite, insightful questions, but unfortunately, we're out of time to field them in this way. But what we are going to do is work with you to pose them and try to just get some brief answers, you know, some answers from you that we can share with the cohort, if that's okay.
Yeah, happy to. And Steve, please do share my contact information, because I would love to follow up with anyone who's interested in a conversation.
I certainly will. Lauren, thank you for being with us today. We so appreciate it. You gave a lens on from your view from the bridge at the state, your experience that no one else could have. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you all. Congratulations again.
Yes. Well, now we move on to the final portion of the event today. We are segueing to a number of things, but first off, I just want to thank my team, and I'll be brief about this, but it's important. Nathan, Jake, Petrutz, Alyssa, Lori, Lauren, Drew, Hernan, Katie, and our operations staff that address the myriad of details associated with running a smooth program. Also our BACR teammates, Zoe and Jake, who you both were in the fellow shoes this time last year, finishing the program yourselves. Your collective ideas, your commitment, your hard work, we simply wouldn't have the program we have and are celebrating today without all of you. So thank you, really, really from the bottom of my heart, because you are why we have this program and the outcomes that we have, in addition to all of our fellows statewide that have worked over past months to make sure that our partners' programs, initiatives move forward. And I want to say a special thank you to Skyline College and our colleagues there for your continued partnership. Rita Gooley, Doctors Karina Antela Suarez, Carla Grandi, Ray Hernandez. Without your passion and willingness to innovate, we wouldn't have the educational component of Climate Corps, the Climate Protection Professional Graduate Certificate, which has become a hallmark of our program. Personally, I want to congratulate Ray as he steps down from serving as Dean in the Science, Math, and Technology Department. It's been a pleasure to work with you since 2013. And I want to congratulate Carla as she steps into that role. We look forward to working with you in a new and expanded way than we have been to date. And certainly to my colleague, Karina, who has just been an incredible partner to me along the way. Ray, can I ask you to unmute yourself now and just say a few words on behalf of the college?
Sure, be happy to. Thank you for that recognition. And Stephen, can I share my screen? Would you allow me the opportunity to do so?
I sure would, Hernan. There you go.
Somebody who has the technical piece, great. And then Hernan, if you can allow me rights to be able to share my screen, let me know when you've done so. Yes, we have. So, one of the things that I just want to say, this has been a really great partnership. I've been with the community college system for over 27 years now, I think it is, and it's just been really a great trajectory. My other professional career was in healthcare, providing direct service to patients as a respiratory care practitioner. So certainly under this pandemic, the work that I had done and my colleagues still do in respiratory care are certainly right at the forefront of what is going on with COVID-19. And so I've been very impressed, certainly with my colleagues in the healthcare arena and being able to see what difference is being made. And then, you know, I'll just step back and I show you this portion of our website with our mission statement, because as I heard our fellows talk, as I heard the presentation from our keynote, I think back to our mission statement for Skyline College, and it's to empower and transform a global community of learners. And I strongly believe that. And in my role as faculty prior and as dean in the last 9 years, that is always what I've looked to and the work that we have done. And then when we look to our partnership with SEI and other partners around sustainability, you know, I think about the work that we've done, and I'm going to go then down to our value statements, and particularly, and this of course is no imperative order, but sustainability. And I think one of the reasons why we've been able to move forward and do the excellent work that we've done is because we do have a commitment and a goal to sustainability. And I think the work that we've done that's been innovative and creative with SEI as a direct partner, I think about just how far we've gone and the challenges we've gone through to get a post-baccalaureate certificate and to provide this opportunity to fellows both in Climate Corps and AmeriCorps, and to do just great work. And Stephen, as we were going along with the presentations that were going on, I was just kind of looking at different things. And I think our first official cohort was in fall of 2015. And so at this point, we've raised Move Forward education in 5 different cohorts. And about how many fellows would you say have come along through this program this far?
Ray, 500 in total, and probably about 300 since the SEI Skyline partnership.
Wow, I mean, it's just it's amazing. And I think about now as we go to, you mentioned the certificate that we offer. And I just want to recognize everybody who is currently here and who has gone through the program or has supported the program. We now have collaboratively over 800 people who have gone through this programmatic structure, who's learned from this, who's done project-based work with partners all around California. You know, the amazing work that's happened and the change that has happened from this. So, you know, I am certainly humbled and honored to be part of this. And I'm going to go back to the partners that we have certainly at the college with Karina and Teles Suarez and Carla Grandi in terms of the college itself. Amazing work that has been done. So kudos to Karina and Carla. And then I did look at the list of participants out there, and I do want to acknowledge in particularly the 2 fellows that I've worked directly with, and that's Landon Smith, working with the Curriculum Blitz, and then Kayla Bellick, who has worked with the Energized Colleges. And again, I want to share my screen one more time because I want to show you again in this COVID pandemic environment, one of the things that one of the Energized Fellows have done our students, and he was moving forward our Green Office program. And in this environment, he wasn't quite sure what to do to help move that forward, being everybody has moved into the home work that's been going on. So out of that, he was able to move the whole program and move it to the home environment. I think he's done some incredible things. And what I'm going to do in the chat box is I'm going to put the links to all 3 of these. But it was just amazing just to see the innovation and the adaptation that people have taken to keep this work moving forward. So first and foremost, you know, thank you for the partnership. First and foremost, thank you for the work that everybody has done, because all of you make a difference in collectively moving forward and creating, you know, the change that needs to happen. So with that said, Stephen, I'll turn that back to you.
Thank you, Ray. We're going to miss you at Skyline, at the district, and Climate Corps. Best wishes.
Thank you.
So we're wrapping up here, folks. I'd be chastised by my team if I didn't call out that we are recruiting for Climate Corps for the next program cycle. Not just California, but Oregon and Washington as well. Please help us spread the word to organizations that are rebuilding and could benefit from the support of a highly capable, well-trained fellow, like the 108 that are graduating today or soon out of our program. I sincerely wish you, our fellows, all the best as you wrap up and transition to whatever you do next, whatever life holds for you next. Your fellowship posters will be available on our website and online, and we'll be broadcasting them to our broader network. The Skyline certificate, for those of you who are receiving the Climate Protection Professional Certificate, we're gonna email you an electronic copy after today. And I personally invite all of you, our outgoing fellows, to stay involved as the newest ranks of our Climate Corps alumni. Your fellowship connection doesn't end here. You can continue to participate through our alumni council and by being a champion for Climate Corps in the organizations that you go on to year after year and position after position. Don't forget Climate Corps, and we won't forget you. Thank you to all our fellows, partners, and attendees for joining us today, all 150 of us, our largest symposium yet. There are some benefits to being remote, virtual. I now invite all of our presenters to unmute yourselves and help me to congratulate our statewide cohort on completing their Climate Corps fellowships here in the spring.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Woohoo. All right. Well, with virtual events, sometimes the ending is a bit of a denouement or anticlimax, but we so appreciate you all being with us today. This marks the end of our 2020 Symposium event. We thank you for joining. Please stay safe, and I wish you all the best. Goodbye. Thank you again.